Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American psychological thriller horror film from 2025, titled The Killer is Calling. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. When she attempts to leave the station, Jake stops her at knife point, refusing to let her go because he fears for Bree's safety. He even shows her a photograph of his house that the killer sent after intercepting the pizza delivery. Faye argues that the killer can no longer monitor them because the cameras have been destroyed, but Jake refuses to take the risk and confiscates her phone. Determined to uncover the truth, Faye heads to the evidence room and begins reviewing old recordings connected to Harry's case. Jake later brings her a ledger recovered from the crime scene, listing two individuals with unpaid debts: Arnold, a handyman, and a man named Michael. Since Harry was a loan shark who frequently threatened people over unpaid debts, Jake suspects one of them may be connected to the murders. However, Faye remains unconvinced. Meanwhile, Ed overhears the conversation and admits that he is glad Harry is dead because he was a terrible person. It is also revealed that Ed owed Harry money and has known Faye since high school. Their discussion hints at unresolved issues from their past, although Faye insists she has moved on. Hoping to learn more, Faye convinces Ed to explain what he knows about Michael. Ed reveals that Harry often threatened those who failed to repay their debts, but before he can continue, Jake interrupts with an important discovery. Jake plays an old recording of Faye handling an emergency call years earlier, and the call involved a woman trapped inside a burning house with her young son, who suffered from asthma. Faye becomes visibly emotional and asks Jake to stop the recording. She then admits that, as a rookie dispatcher, she mistakenly gave emergency responders the wrong address during the incident. By the time the mistake was corrected, both the woman and her son had already died. Jake then discovers a news article about the tragedy, revealing that the surviving husband and father was a man named Michael Draper. The truth finally becomes clear: years earlier, Faye's mistake during the emergency call led to the deaths of Michael's wife and child. The devastating loss shattered Michael's life, and after years of carefully planning his revenge, he has returned to target Faye. It is also revealed that the fire which killed Michael's wife and son was not an accident. Michael had borrowed money from Harry, a ruthless bookie, who later set Michael's house on fire as punishment for failing to repay the debt. During the court case that followed the tragedy, Michael blamed Judge Langford for the outcome and attempted to kill him, an act that ultimately led to Michael being imprisoned. After his release from prison, Michael began systematically taking revenge on everyone he believed was responsible for ruining his life. He first murdered Harry, then targeted Hamlin, and finally turned his attention to Judge Langford. At the same time, Saito contacts Jake and reports that he has arrived at Jake's house but cannot find Bree anywhere, and just then, Michael sends Jake a photograph showing Bree tied up and being held captive. Realizing that Judge Langford is Michael's next target, Faye immediately calls the judge and warns him to leave his house at once. Langford explains that he recently hired Arnold to repair a broken window, but he soon realizes that the man inside his home is actually Michael disguised as one of Arnold's workers. Following Faye's instructions, Judge Langford manages to escape in his car while Michael pursues him in another vehicle. At the same time, another ferry arrives to transport the SWAT team to the island. Jake instructs the ferry captain to wait for Langford, while Faye directs the judge toward the ferry for safety. As Langford takes a shortcut through Arnold's neighborhood, Faye quickly contacts Arnold and learns that he unknowingly sent Michael to the judge's house for repair work. Horrified after discovering Michael's true intentions, Arnold decides to help stop him despite Faye warning him to remain inside. Arnold places a spike strip across the road, successfully bursting one of Michael's tires and temporarily stopping the chase. However, Michael attacks Arnold and overpowers him before calling Faye and forcing her to choose who should survive, Arnold or Langford. After confirming that Langford has reached safety, Faye tells Michael to spare Arnold and continue pursuing Langford instead. When Michael mentions that the ferry was intended for the police officers, Faye immediately realizes something is wrong and warns Saito to evacuate everyone. Seconds later, a massive explosion destroys part of the ferry. Faye fears the worst, but Saito later confirms that everyone, including Langford, survived and that emergency responders have already arrived at the scene. Arnold later informs Faye that Michael stole his green truck after abandoning his own damaged vehicle. Jake runs the abandoned truck's license plate number and discovers that it belongs to a woman named Catherine Sirhan, Michael's younger sister-in-law. Faye immediately recognizes the photograph attached to the records and realizes that Catherine is actually Stella, Chris' nurse, who has secretly been helping Michael the entire time. Faye quickly contacts Officer Croft, who is guarding her family's home, and warns him that Michael is approaching. At the same time, she secretly calls Chris and reveals Stella's true identity, urging him and Alex to escape immediately. Unfortunately, Stella discovers that they know the truth before they can flee and prevents them from leaving. Outside the house, Michael deliberately runs Croft over with his vehicle before kidnapping Chris, Alex, and Stella and driving away with them. Desperate to save her family, Faye attempts to leave the station, but Jake refuses to let her go because he still fears for Bree's safety. Jake tries to lock Faye inside a holding cell with Ed, but Ed intervenes, leading to a violent struggle between them. During the fight, Jake accidentally stabs Ed in the stomach. Panicking, Jake rushes to retrieve a first aid kit, but with Ed's assistance, Faye manages to knock Jake unconscious with a hammer before escaping from the station. In her car, Faye receives a secret phone call from Chris, who tells her that he and Alex are tied up in the back of an old truck while Michael transports them to an unknown location. Chris provides directions, leading Faye to an abandoned house that is revealed to be Michael's burned family home. Inside, Faye desperately searches for Chris and Alex but cannot find them. Upstairs, she discovers a laptop containing a pre-recorded video message from Michael. In the video, Michael reveals that he forced Chris to intentionally give Faye the wrong directions. Realizing she has once again fallen into Michael's trap, Faye listens as Michael explains that he intends to make her family suffer the same tragic fate that destroyed his own family years earlier. Meanwhile, Michael and Catherine take Chris and Alex to a barn filled with haystacks, where Bree is also being held captive. As Faye struggles to determine their real location, she replays her conversation with Chris and realizes he had secretly hidden clues in his words, allowing her to figure out where Michael has taken them. At the barn, Chris and Alex are locked inside a cage while Michael pours gasoline throughout the building. Michael and Catherine then return to their vehicle to retrieve more fuel canisters. Catherine admits that she is beginning to regret their actions. Although she still wants justice for her sister's death, she tells Michael that the situation does not have to end this way. However, Michael reminds her of the pain and anger they both experienced after losing his wife and child, insisting that it is already too late to turn back. After bringing the remaining gasoline into the barn, Michael and Catherine continue spreading fuel around the area. When Bree tries to interfere, Catherine threatens her with a knife and orders her to stay quiet. However, Bree pleads for Catherine's help and reveals that she is pregnant. The revelation deeply affects Catherine and causes her to reconsider her actions. Secretly deciding to help them, Catherine frees Bree and pretends to chase after her as she escapes. Michael prepares to set the barn on fire with Chris and Alex still trapped inside. Just as he is about to ignite the flames, Faye arrives and attempts to break the lock holding her family captive. Michael immediately sets the haystacks ablaze with a lighter, causing the fire to spread rapidly throughout the barn. A violent struggle breaks out between Faye and Michael eventually overpowers her. He tells Faye that she will fail to save her family and will be forced to watch them burn, just as he watched his own family die years earlier. However, Faye manages to grab a nearby wrench and strikes Michael, knocking him unconscious. As the fire quickly engulfs the barn, Faye successfully unlocks the cage holding Chris and Alex, and the family escapes the burning building together. Shortly afterward, Jake arrives at the scene after regaining consciousness and reunites with Bree, who is unharmed. Jake apologizes to Faye for their earlier conflict, but Faye reassures him that everything is fine and reveals that Michael is dead. She then asks Jake to issue an APB for Catherine, who is on the run, and the movie ends with the family safely reunited, expressing their love for one another. Okay guys, that's all the recap about The Killer is Calling from 2025. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.